Thank you everyone for joining us today for this virtual conference session. On the phone I have Zach Ryan as well, Program Officer with Senior Corps. He'll be helping out with the Q&A, which will be moderated by Tamika Beckton, who is also with Senior Corps, so thanks to the two of you for your assistance. This session is on the Senior Corps grant application. I will take you through all the steps from creating an eGrants account to actually submitting your application in eGrants. So as you know, eGrants is the online system used to submit an application to CNCS for Senior Corps. You can reach eGrants at the bottom of our nationalservice.gov website. So here you'll see on my screen a link for eGrants. But before I actually go into the system, I want to show you where the grant application instructions can be found. So if you go to nationalservice.gov and click on Build Your Capacity, and then click on Grants over here on the left side and Managing Senior Corps Grants. And then if I scroll down to about midway, you'll find the RSVP Senior Corps Grant Application, the FGP and SCP Senior Corps Grant Application. Our instructions are divided into Volume 1 and Volume 2. So Volume 1 you see here is RSVP, and then Volume 2 is FGP and SCP. You'll want to have those documents in front of you, as well as these eGrants visual instructions, and I'll click on this briefly to show you what it looks like. In case you need a refresher on any of the information I'm going to be sharing today, everything is found in these eGrants visual instructions or the grant application instructions for your project. These visual instructions include screenshots of every part of eGrants where you input information for the application. So as I said, I'm going to take you from actually creating an eGrants account to application submission. You can get to eGrants on that page here as well. I'm going to actually be using a test environment today, so I'm going to go to that page. Now to get started, I'm going to go to Don't Have an eGrants Account, Create an Account, then Create a Grantee Account, and then this is my first time. I want to create a new account with eGrants. These are the steps that you would take if you were a new organization that had never had a CNCS grant, or if you are a new staff person at a Senior Corps project. So for example, if you're an executive director and you need to submit a Senior Corps application as the authorized representative, these are some of the steps you would take to create your eGrants account and connect it to your particular Senior Corps organization. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. So to start creating my eGrants account, I'm going to enter my name, and this is a test environment, so I'm going to use some test information. And I create a username. And password. Be sure you write down that username so you don't forget it. And then you'll want to enter your email address. And then next I enter my EIN for the organization that I'm creating an account for. So in a situation where you're new staff at an existing Senior Corps grantee organization, you'd be sure to enter your EIN exactly for your organization. And then you see this list of organizations that match your EIN. So if I'm coming on as new staff, I should see my organization listed here. And I would select it and move on. And this would trigger an email to the grantee administrator at my organization. In most cases, that's the person who originally created the eGrants account, or possibly it's the Senior Corps project director. They would get an email saying someone is requesting access to your eGrants account, and you would be able to then, that person goes in and selects particular user roles for that new person at that particular project. So in this case, I am creating a completely new organization. I'm acting as though my organization has never applied for Senior Corps before. So I am creating a new organization for that EIN. And then it prompts me to enter some additional information, including my DUNS number and my organization name. And then I select an organization type. I'm going to select nonprofit. And it asks me to add some characteristics for my organization. So in this case, I'm going to say that we are a community-based organization. And then it asks me to enter my address. And you do have to enter your complete zip +4. And eGrants will prompt you with that +4 if you forget it. And all of the information I'm entering here is particular to my organization itself. So it's probably going to have me verify these organizational characteristics. I only want one, so I'm going to delete that second one it included. And hopefully now it'll let me move on to the next screen. But sometimes it will recommend a different address for you, and that's fine. It's just verifying through the records that your address is up to date. So now I enter a daytime phone. So this screen asks me to verify everything that I've just entered, and everything looks correct, so I'm going to submit. And I have successfully created my account. So now I go to my home page, and you'll notice there's not a lot here. So what I'm actually going to do is log out and log back in again. And it's going to look a little different when I do that. So now you'll see I have several additional options than I had previously. So what I'm going to do in this case, I mentioned I'm creating a new organization as though my organization has never had Senior Corps before. So I'm going to act like I'm applying for a new grant. If I am a current grantee, if I'm an FGP or SCP grantee going for my renewal, which is the first year of your 3-year project, I would select continuation/renewal. If I were an FGP, SCP, or RSVP that is already in my project, so I've already been awarded, I've been selected through a competition, or I've had a Senior Corps grant for a while, and I'm doing a continuation, which means I'm applying for my 2nd or 3rd year within my 3-year project period, I would enter continuation or renewal here as well. And your CNCS state office will be able to tell you whether you're doing a continuation or renewal. But generally, renewal is year 1 of a 3-year grant. In this particular situation I mentioned, I'm new. I'm going to apply through a competitive situation, so I'm going to select new. And for program area, I select Senior Corps and click Go. And then it gives me a drop-down list of all of the NOFAs available for Senior Corps at this time. So if I am applying for a renewal or continuation, my CNCS state office will tell me which NOFA to select in this case. If I'm applying for a competition situation, then my application is most likely going to be for the NOFA for 2014 RSVP. As I mentioned, I'm in a test environment that NOFA is not available, so I'm going to select this RSVP 2013, and it will look very similar. This is where I review my NOFA, make sure I selected the correct thing, and then I create a new project. If you were an existing organization with Senior Corps, you're likely going to have a drop-down in this particular situation, and it will allow you to select from a list of projects that you already have in operation. So here I enter my project information. So if I already had a Senior Corps grant, I would have gotten this drop-down list right from the start. So it allows me to select the project that I'm working on. It allows me to select a project director. And this is typically a drop-down list of anyone who currently has a Senior Corps grant. And I'm actually going to edit this project title. Now, if I go to the Senior Corps grant application instructions, I know that RSVP, FGP, or SCP needs to be included in my project title. And then I'm instructed to kind of describe the geographic area to help identify my project. So I'm updating my project title to RSVP Hill County. Because that's my service area, and then my director is Jane. I'm going to move forward to the next screen. And then I enter the area affected by my project. If I am applying for the RSVP competition, this is where I enter the information exactly as it appears in Appendix A, because that's the area that I'm going to be serving. If I'm with FGP or SCP, I'm going to enter the geographic service area that my project serves. And I'm going to enter it specifically by counties. If I serve most of the cities in that county, you don't really have to say, for example, in this situation, Hill County, and then list the 10 cities that are in that area. Hill County is enough. If I just serve that county, I'm just going to list it. If I serve 5 counties, be sure you list every county you serve. But other than the actual county or city, there's no need to provide any additional information in that section, just for the geographic service area. And then I select my start date. And I'll know what my start date is from my CNCS state office or from the competitive NOFA that I'm applying to. All project periods are 3 years. So in this case, I'm showing right here my July 1 start date and then my end date 3 years later. Here's where you enter whether or not your application is subject to State Executive Order 12372. And if you need information about what exactly that means, there are many more details in the grant application instructions. So if I were subject to that review, I would select yes, and I would enter the date of the review. And then down here in the state application identifier, I would enter the identifying number assigned to me for that review. If my organization is delinquent on any federal debt, I would select yes, and I would explain in this box what debt I'm delinquent on. And the categories of delinquent debt include delinquent audit allowances, loans, and taxes. And again, that's for the organization, not for me as an individual. So next I move on to narratives. And now that I'm on narratives, I want to draw your attention to some other parts of this screen. On the left, you see all of the sections that I have to move through in order to submit my application. I've completed applicant info and application info. And those parts, along with the funding and demographics part, are going to populate the face sheet, which is that table that you would see if you were to print the grant application instructions. It's the first full page of the printable PDF for the grant application. Down below, you see the grant application ID. This is unique to the application I'm submitting. So if I were submitting an amendment or a continuation, there would be new application IDs assigned to those particular things. This is a little different from my grant number, which is what I would get if I were awarded. So if I need to go back and work on this application later, if I don't finish it right now, I'm going to go back when I log into eGrants and look for this specific number. Otherwise, I might accidentally start another grant application or start working on something that's wrong, like say I have FGP and SCP. I want to be sure I'm selecting the correct application ID when I come back. So this is the narrative section. This is where you would enter your executive summary. There is a very specific template about what should go in that executive summary, and you'll be able to find that in the grant application instructions. You'll notice as I clicked on that box, this arrow that was orange changed to a green check mark, and that just shows that I've entered information into that box. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's complete or that I'm satisfied with it. I just know that some text has been entered there. So I'm going to go through for each of these and enter text, just some test info. If you need to see exactly what to put in there, of course, view the grant application instructions. But the system won't allow me to submit this unless something is entered in all of these boxes. So I want to be sure I show you all how to actually submit successfully. So I'm going to just enter test in all of these. Of course, that's not what you will do. And keep in mind that these narratives, including the executive summary and face sheet, can be no longer than 25 pages for all programs. In the other section, you'll find in the grant application instructions and the NOFA that no information has to be entered here at this time. So you can just enter NA for other. And the same with P&S amendment. You'll have to enter something here, as I mentioned, otherwise you won't be able to submit. So I've entered information for all of those. They're all green. Next, I'm going to go to work plan. Now, we have a separate work plan session that some of you have already attended as part of the virtual conference. So I'm not going to go into big details here, but I do have to enter some information. Otherwise, it will not let me submit. So I'm just going to do the minimum. And of course, I highly encourage you all to listen to those sessions on demand. So as I said, I'm just going to select these quickly as I go through. Of course, there are many more details about what information actually needs to be entered in these attendance, or excuse me, in these instrument descriptions and service activity descriptions. Now I've selected my outputs and outcomes, and to move to the next screen, I have to click next. And then I'm just going to put in my number of unduplicated volunteers, set them up so they meet my minimum requirements. See if I get it right this time. success, so that's good. So I go to the next screen where I should be able to validate my performance measures. And I see success there. So now, in order to get to the next section, I need to go back to my eGrants application. So I click here at the top, back to eGrants application. And it kind of sets me back at the same landing page I was at before. So now I actually have to click on Documents. This is where I need to, again, refer to the grant application instructions for my project. For FGP and SCP, I'm going to look at pages 21 and 22 of the grant application instructions. And for RSVP, I'm going to look at pages 16 and 17. And it's very specific. It tells me where exactly to send this information. Some of it has to be mailed to the Field Financial Management Center, depending on which project I am and whether I'm applying for a continuation or renewal. Some of it will have to be emailed to 2014 RSVP attachments at cns.gov if I'm applying for the RSVP competition. And there are 3 columns on those pages I just mentioned, and they tell me exactly what I need to submit depending on what type of organization I am. So if I have a current Senior Corps grant and I'm applying for a continuation, I would follow the 3rd column. If I have a current Senior Corps grant and I'm applying for a competitive situation, so if there's a competitive NOFA out there for FGP or SCP or the RSVP competition, and I have any Senior Corps grant already, I'm going to follow the 2nd column. If I'm a completely new organization and I've never had RSVPs, then I follow the 1st column. So keep that in mind as you're going through this particular part of the application. So you'll have to select something from each of these drop-downs. Already on file would mean that I've sent it to CNCS previously, and this really, if you look at the table, only applies for continuations. If you're applying in a new competitive situation, a lot of this information we're going to want resent. So be sure you know which column you're following. So as I mentioned, I'm going to apply as though I'm a completely new organization. So I'm going to say that I'm going to send this document. It means I'm going to email it in or mail it, depending on which situation applies. Now, direct deposit, I don't have to send until later, so I'm going to select not applicable. And I know that from reading my application instructions, that document selected later on in the process for my competition. I don't have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement that's approved. One's in progress, but it's not approved. So I'm going to set not applicable to that one. So I can't include that indirect cost rate in my budget, and I'll go over that when we get to the budget. Okay, so I've selected everything that I need to here. I'm going to click Next. And this is where I get to Budget Section 1. You'll notice there's Section 1 and Section 2. I'm going to start by clicking Enter Source of Matching Funds. And this is where I'm actually going to tell you which organizations are supplying my non-federal match. So in this case, I'm going to say it's Becton Family Foundation. And this is, again, just for Part 1 of the budget. So I'm going to save that. And then as I were to go through and enter all of my budget items, I would tell you specifically which line items the foundation was contributing towards and in what amounts. So the first budget item is project personnel expenses. And this is where I'm going to list the title of each staff position that's charged to my project. And I'm going to list all of those positions, whether they're CNCS funded, grantee share funded, or excess. Anyone who's spending time on my grant and I'm accounting for them as staff, I'm going to enter them here. I'm going to open this budget item just so I can show you a little bit about what it looks like. So I would enter the title, the quantity, the annual salary, and the percentage of time. So this person's full-time. And my CNCS share, and then my grantee share. And my grantee share is the same as my non-federal funds that are required. And now you'll see that since I've entered that line item, now I have an edit option for that. So if I need to go back and make any changes, I can do that there. Or I can delete it. Or if I have more stuff that I need to add, I would just go back and add another budget item for that particular section. I'm not going to click on all of these, but I'll go through and give some information about what goes in each of these. So the next one is personnel fringe benefits. And in that one, I would enter those benefits that my project employees are entitled to. So I would enter them also at the percentage that applies to them that I listed up here in the personnel expenses. So if I have someone, let's say an assistant coordinator, and they're only 50% time RSVP, then I would enter their benefits at only 50% time as well. Next is local travel. For local travel, I'm going to list the purpose of the travel and the basis for any cost calculations. And local travel is defined as anything within my project service area, which you remember I entered those counties previously, so that's my service area. Long distance travel is any travel that's outside of my service area. So for that travel, I'm going to show the purpose of each trip, and I'm going to break out the cost of transportation, meals, lodging, and other travel costs. And I'll show you what that one looks like. So you'll see it really makes you break it out in these particular extra lines, and even say the destination and the purpose. And you can put quite a bit of text in these boxes, so we do really encourage you to put a lot of detail in here to show us how you arrived at this information and these calculations. Next is equipment. Equipment is defined as anything costing more than $5,000, so that should be listed there in equipment. Next is supplies. And for that, I'm going to enter the items that I plan to purchase for my project, including the quantity, the respective costs, and I'll even explain how each item is going to be used in my project. Then next is contract and consultant services. So in that section, I'm going to itemize each contract or consultant and also include a justification of the need for each of those positions, each of those services. So that might include clerical support, training consultants, equipment repair and maintenance, or bookkeeping services. But it's really specific to anything that I have a contract with in my organization. So you might not have anything in that particular line item. Next is other volunteer support costs. And in this, I would enter my criminal background check, and then things like training, evaluation services, other items could go here as well. For criminal background check, be sure you're familiar with the requirements for your particular project. And again, we have virtual conference sessions on that topic. And then next is indirect cost. A negotiated indirect cost rate has to be in place with your federal agency, with your cognizant federal agency, in order for you to enter anything here. So again, a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement has to already be in place. So in this section, if I had a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, I would enter the type, whether it's provisional, predetermined, final, or fixed, and the estimated amount of the base to which the indirect rate was applied, and then the total indirect expense. And then down here at the bottom, it gives me a subtotal. And I'm going to click Next to go to my next budget section. Now I'm in section 2, and again, I have this Enter Source of Matching Funds section at the top. And this is where I would enter the source of all of my non-federal funds for this budget section. So if I have an organization that's donated money to me for an item in part 1, but not part 2 for the budget, then I would have only listed that organization in part 1, and vice versa. So I'm not actually going to enter anything here because I'm not going to list any match in this particular part. This is where you would enter other volunteer costs. And be sure that you're familiar with what is required as far as volunteer expenses for your particular project, FGP, SCP, or RSVP. If you were FGP or SCP, you would see a stipend section in this budget section too. So now I'm going to validate, and it was validated without errors, so that's good. If I had any errors, it would specifically tell me what those are and how to actually go and fix those. So next I go to funding and demographics. And this is where you see my breakdown of my funding. And here I'm asked to really describe again where my applicant share is coming from, my non-federal funds or my match. So I entered $10,000. Remember I said the Becton Family Foundation was supporting my project. That's a local organization, so I'm going to enter that amount here. If it were a state organization, I would enter the amount here. If it were other, I would enter under other, and there's more description about that in your grant application instructions. And next I entered the unduplicated volunteers for my project. If you remember from the work plan section, I had 100 volunteers. So I'm going to be sure that matches what's in my work plans. And next, this is my last review of the application. So this page gives me a lot of options for viewing my application in different formats. The easiest one is this second bullet, application for federal assistance. If I click that, it's going to start with my face sheet, which, as I mentioned, is that one-page table that gathers information from the applicant info, application info, and funding demographic sections and puts it in a table. So this is my face sheet. Then it would be followed by my narratives, which your narratives, executive summary, and face sheet can be no longer than 25 pages. And then finally, my work plans are at the end. So you'll see there are the work plans I created, and then the status of all of those required documents. So everything looks good there. I'm within my page limits. And now I can look at my budget narrative. There's two options, budget and budget narrative. Budget narrative really has a lot more detail, so I encourage you to look at that one. This is where I can really see where I stand on my non-federal share. It does take a moment to load. Hopefully it will come up, but what it would show you is everything that was entered into the budget. We'll check back on that one later. And I'm just scrolling to the bottom to show you everything that was entered here. Here you can see the full grantee share, my non-federal share. I'm at 20%, and I'm a new organization applying in a competitive situation, so I would really only be required to come in at 10% in year one, so I'm exceeding my requirement here, so that's good. I'm going to go to the next screen. And there's my budget narrative. Just took it a moment. So this shows, I'm going to expand this, shows everything that was entered. If I had descriptive information where I could have entered that additional information in those text boxes I showed, it would show up on this printout. So this is really handy. I can see every single piece of detail that I put in here. And then this is really the only place you can see that source of matching funds that I entered at the beginning of each budget section. It's on this printout. And again, this is the budget narrative. So now I'm on the authorize and submit screen. For most organizations, the authorized representative is someone other than project director. So as I mentioned before, you're probably going to have more than one person at your organization with an eGrants account. So this is the point in the process where if I were the project director and I'm not the authorized representative, I would log out of eGrants. And then I would contact my authorized representative, be sure that they've completely reviewed the application, and be sure that they have their own eGrants account set up with their own username and password. And then they would log in at this point with their own username and password, and they would come to this authorize and submit page, and they would actually be the one to click these buttons. So here I'm agreeing, I'm authorizing. And now my name shows up here. So if you're an organization that's been with Senior Corps for a while, you might have, let's say you have new executive director, you might have the old executive director's name on here, and it's just because they haven't, the new person hasn't logged in yet and submitted an application. So it will really take that person creating an eGrants account, connecting to the application that you're working on, and actually clicking these I agree buttons before that name will change. So of course, I'm not going to do it at this moment, but you'll see view print certification next to assurances and certifications. Be sure you open those documents and print them for your records, review them, be very familiar with what's in those and what you're actually agreeing to with submitting this application. So here I'm verifying the application, there are no errors. And now my last option is to submit grant application to CNCS. And now I get the message that I've successfully completed the action to submit my grant application. And to double check that, I'm going to go back to my home page. I'm going to click View All here under View My Grants. And remember my app ID from previously? This is it again. And the status now shows as submitted to CNCS. Before it showed up as grantee initial entry. So now I know the status has changed. It's definitely been submitted. I can even go back and view it, but I can't make any changes at this point because it's been submitted. It's awaiting review. So that's all the content I have to share. So I'm going to ask Tamika if there are any questions that we can answer.
Yes, there are a few questions. The first question is to confirm if I'm an incumbent applying through the recompeting process for the NOFA for 2014, which one am I going to select as far as what application am I going to select?
So for the RSVP competition, every applicant applying, whether you have a current CNCS grant or not, is going to select new from that home page. If you select renewal, it's going to be a little bit tricky for you because your old grant application is going to populate with old information. And that's not going to be helpful to you. It's not going to be helpful to us either. So really be sure you're selecting the correct thing. Select new. It's going to prompt you with another question. It's going to say, are you sure? Maybe you meant to select renewal instead because you have this other application with us. And you're going to say, no, I'm sure I want to do new. And then you'll move forward from there. If you've accidentally selected renewal, and I've already started working on it, copy that information over into a Word document to hold it, and then delete that renewal application and start over with new and paste your information in there.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, what is the difference in a continuation application and an amendment to an application?
So a continuation application is what you would submit to start your second or third year of your project. So as I mentioned, all of our projects are 3-year periods. So we award the funding 1 year at a time though. So towards the end of year 1, you would submit a continuation for year 2. Towards the end of year 2, you submit your continuation for year 3. An amendment is a little different. You would work with your CNCS state office, and they would help you determine whether an amendment is needed. It's basically a change to your application, and you would really want to work closely with your CNCS state office to be sure that one is really needed and you're not supposed to be doing something else in eGrants instead.
Okay, so another question that came in, what is an augmentation in the application?
An augmentation is one of the amendment types. Typically, it's a budget change. So if additional funds are to be awarded or typically it's additional funds to be awarded. So for example, we had an augmentation competition for veterans activities for RSVP. So awarded applicants from that competition were current RSVP grantees. If they were awarded, they had an augmentation to their current grant to add that additional funding.
Okay, so will we still be using the special needs form to identify students and the reasons that they need the services of a foster grandparent volunteer?
I'm going to see if Zach wants to answer that one as far as how it applies to the new performance measures. Zach, do you have a response?
So I don't think there's a specific form, but you are required to document that every child who is served by a foster grandparent is eligible to be served by that grandparent. So there may be forms out there that have been created as samples by state offices. So you can check with your state office to see if there is a form available, but there is the requirement that you document that every child is eligible to be served by a foster grandparent.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, our sponsor serves 7 countries, 7 counties. However, the project does not have stations in each of the 7 counties. In the grant application, should only the counties the project serves be listed?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say talk to your state office to be sure that you're implementing your grant correctly. If you were awarded to serve all 7 of those counties, so the example I'm thinking of is specific to the RSVP competition. We have counties that are up for competition, and everything awarded in that is to serve the full geographic service area as it's described. So you may need to start recruiting some other stations, but contact your CNCS state office. Be sure you're implementing your project the way it was awarded. If it's something where you could phase out those counties, your state office will be able to help you determine that.
Okay, thank you. I'm new to the program, and since I have an existing eGrants application going, I don't have access to the eGrant instructions. How do I get this fixed?
So there are eGrants visual instructions that are available to everyone. I'm not sure if this is what they're going for, but there are eGrants visual instructions. I can show you again where those are. If you go to Managing Senior Corps Grants, so again, I got here by going to nationalservice.gov and clicking on Build Your Capacity, and then Grants over on the left side, and then Managing Senior Corps Grants. About middle of the page, you'll see eGrants visual instructions. And this is a PDF document that shows screenshots of every part of eGrants where you would enter information. And those are really the best eGrants instructions that we have. There are also instructions that are kind of embedded in eGrants. So for example, if I were inputting information, you might see a question mark next to something, and I hover over that, some help text will show up, or you can always contact the eGrants help desk if there's a technical issue. There's a lot of help text built into the system as well.
Okay, so we have always been told to write all of our narrative information in Word, where we can edit, spell check, etc., and save, then cut and paste to the grant application. As there is no way to do this. Is this still a good idea?
Yeah, I would say that is a good idea. As you mentioned, there's no spell check in eGrants. So you can easily start your document in a Word document and then copy and paste it over. You may need to use Control-C and then Control-V when you're actually pasting, but it's a good way to help you work on your application without having to be in the eGrant system. It's a more user-friendly view of it. You're not viewing it in a pop-up box. So yes, we do recommend that.
Okay. If the system administrator is no longer with the agency to approve new users, how can these individuals create an account?
In that situation, you're going to want to contact the National Service Hotline, and you can do that by clicking here, Contact Help Desk. You can also get to this particular part by going to the eGrants page. So I go to eGrants, contact help desk there. So by doing that, I can submit a request to have that person's account disabled or to have my account become the grantee administrator account. The National Service Hotline can help walk you through how exactly to do that. And there's also a phone number. You'll see here down at the bottom, 800-942-2677. They'll be able to help you out with that.
Okay, another question. Can you clarify for the grantee the fact that if they are in the budget at 100%, they cannot write the renewal, only the continuations because the fundraiser rule?
Sure. So fundraising for Senior Corps projects is not an allowable expense with grant funds. You can do fundraising, but you can't count it as Senior Corps time. So that time would have to be accounted for in the excess column of the budget. So if I were to go into the budget again, I'm not sure if I can show this exactly or not, but I'll try. So I go to View, and I go to Budget Section 1, because that's where my personnel line is. I'm going to view that one. You'll see this excess amount down here. This is where I would account for fundraising time. So it's allowable for my RSVP coordinator to do, but it's not allowable to be paying them through CNCS grant funds or the non-federal share for that particular time. A continuation is a requirement of the 3-year project. So continuation applications aren't considered fundraising, but a renewal is considered an ask for new money, so that's considered fundraising.
Okay, so under community priorities, does a separate work plan need to be completed for each activity we are planning, such as volunteers helping at a hospital or answering phones for a nonprofit?
I'm going to let Zach answer that one.
Sure. The answer is that no, you actually are the system will only let you have one work plan for community priorities. So all of your community priorities activities should be included in that one work plan.
All right, thank you, Zach. Will RSVP grants ever use the continuation/renewal button?
Yes. So continuations are to submit an application for your 2nd and 3rd year of funding within that 3-year project period. So when you're at roughly the 8 or 9 month mark, your CNCS state office will tell you, okay, it's time to submit your continuation for year 2, and that's where you would submit that continuation/renewal option in eGrants, and your state office will tell you exactly what to do when that time comes.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us the character limits for the narrative sections?
So for the narratives, I wouldn't be concerned with character limits. You could type a lot of information and never reach our character limits. I mean, they're in there, but the page limit is what's going to what you need to pay attention to. Our character limits exceed what our page limit requirement is. So the page limit is 25 pages as they print out from eGrants. So as I showed you before on that review page, when you go to look at the application PDF, and again, it's the second one, Application for Federal Assistance, I click on View/Print Report. What you really need to be concerned with is 25 pages total for the face sheet through the end of the narrative. Doesn't include the work plans, doesn't include the budget. It's just the face sheet, executive summary, and narrative. So in this case, my narrative, my performance measures start on page 3. So I only have 2 pages here. I'm doing pretty good, well under 25.
Okay, thank you. Is there a possibility to have a virtual conference in January before the grants are due each year?
I'm going to let Zach answer that one.
Okay. Is it possible? It may be possible. We can definitely take that back to Irwin or Dr. Tan in Senior Corps and talk about the timing of the virtual conference, and we will do that. But Patty and I have very little control over the timing of the conference. But we'll definitely take that back, like I said, and discuss it with Dr. Tan.
Okay, thank you.
I think something to keep in mind there is we have grants that are due at various times throughout the year. So we try to pick a time when it will apply to most folks as they're working on things, but we understand that the quarterly cycle, some of you are working on your grants in December and some are working in the summer. So it's hard to pick, but as Zach said, we'll take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you. As an incumbent, can you, for a new RSVP grant, where can I find where the documents must be submitted?
So for a new RSVP grant, so for the competition, they're all to be emailed to 2014 RSVP attachments at cns.gov. And you'll find that email address in the RSVP NOFO, which is found on the competition website, nationalservice.gov/RSVP competition.
Okay. In one of our areas, each month they test the emergency sirens, and we have volunteers who listen to make sure that the siren is in their area is working properly, and then they mail it, and they mail in a card to the city. Could this fall under disaster services under D6?
Go ahead, Zach.
Okay, so I'm going to try not to get into a lot of detail about specific activities that fit with specific measures. What I can tell you is you want to look at Appendix B and look at the language in Appendix B for Measure D6. And if there is nothing in that language for the instructions in D6 that says it doesn't fit, then I think you should propose it as an activity. So in other words, you should assume that it does. So the best advice is to look at Appendix B, those instructions. If it fits with those instructions, then it fits because those are the guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Can you please confirm the character limits for within the work plan?
So the work plans have really only 3 sections where you can enter your own text. The rest is all by drop-down menus. So you enter your own community need, you enter an instrument description, and you enter service activity description for each particular work plan. When you enter those, it's 2,000 characters for each of those text boxes. So they may look small, but you can actually enter a lot of information there.
Okay, thank you. Can you show us where the RSVP work plan worksheets are on the NOFA page?
Yes. I'm going to open a new tab here. So the NOFA page, as I mentioned, is nationalservice.gov/RSVP competition. If I scroll to the available documents, RSVP performance measures worksheet, it's right here in a Word document that I can open, I can save it to my computer, I can type information directly into it. So that's where to find it, nationalservice.gov/RSVP competition under available documents.
And this is also where you find Appendix B. You could see that in the list just above the work plans.
Yep, Appendix B right here. It's on the competition website, but it's also on the Knowledge Network in the National Performance Measures section, because these are the instructions for all the Senior Corps National Performance Measures.
Okay, we have about 3 more questions. In Appendix A of the 2014 RSVP competition, there's a list of minimum number of volunteers for the program. Do I just complete work plans for that number of volunteers or for the actual amount of volunteers in the program?
So that number is exactly what it says. It's a minimum. So that's the minimum requirement. You're welcome to come in well above that requirement, double, triple, whatever you think is feasible for your project to achieve, for your proposal to achieve, but that's the minimum. So you can come in right at that minimum, and that's fine, or you can come in at more, up to you and your proposal.
Okay. Is it appropriate to include letters of support in the other section of the narrative?
So in the FTP and STP instructions, I'm going to go to the other narrative instructions in the application instructions, and it will tell me what exactly to put there. Give me just a moment. So this is on page 13. It says Other. This section is used as needed to address any additional program requirements that appear in the published NOFA or supplemental instructions. Refer to the NOFA for specifics. So there are FTP and STP competitions that come about for very small areas in relinquished situations. So in that situation, there would be a NOFA corresponding to the competition. So I would go to that NOFA and I would look at what exactly it tells me to put in there. And if it doesn't say anything to put in there, I'm going to enter NA because I have to enter something in there. I can't submit the application. But in most cases, you'll enter NA unless there's something that's specifically asked in the NOFA. So the NOFA might say, in the other section, explain XYZ, particular to that NOFA. So for this
Okay.
situation, NA.
Okay. Do the performance measures on the PPR stand alone 1 year at a time, or do we have to meet the numbers set by the end of the 3rd year?
So the numbers entered in the work plans for your targets and your unduplicated volunteers are what you expect to achieve in the 3rd year of the grant. So it's an annual target, but what we're really looking for is that you can achieve it in the 3rd year. So you might achieve it in the 1st year, and we might say that's going pretty well, but we're really looking at the 3rd year. We want to see progress towards that. So it's an annual target to be met in the 3rd year.
Okay. And how long will the on-demand sessions be available?
I'll let Zach answer that.
So the on-demand sessions will be available actually in the virtual conference environment for approximately 30 days. After that, all of the content will be moved to the Knowledge Network. So it will be available in the environment for about 30 days. After that, you will still be able to access all of the material, including the recorded live sessions, on the Knowledge Network.
Okay. There was one more question, and you may have already spoke about on this one. If we are an incumbent RSVP but doing a competitive grant in a new geographic area, when we submit supplemental material, are we to look at the new competitive column on page 16?
So there's a couple different wording issues in this question. So when we say incumbent, we mean the current sponsor for that area. So some opportunities in Appendix A have an X in them, and that means it's a vacant area. It means there is no incumbent. So if you're an incumbent, it means you have an RSVP grant, but this person sounds like they're applying for another opportunity for which they are not the incumbent. So I just want to clarify that a little bit. So what you submit as far as the required documents, really, whether or not you're the incumbent for the opportunity isn't taken into consideration. What we're looking at is whether or not you have any Senior Corps grant or not. So the first column is new competitive. That means you are a new organization to Senior Corps. You have no current Senior Corps grant at all. FGP, SCP, RSVP, you have none of those. The second column is current Senior Corps grantee. So if you have a current FGP and you're applying for an RSVP opportunity in Appendix A and you've never had RSVP before, you would follow column 2. If you are an RSVP incumbent and you're applying for your own opportunity, your own service area, you would follow column 2. If you are an RSVP project applying for your own service area, but then you're submitting an additional application to a vacant service area or a nearby service area, for that other opportunity, you're going to follow column 2 because you already have a Senior Corps grant.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a direct link to the RSVP sample measurement tools in the Knowledge Network?
So there are sample tools for some performance measures, but not all. This doesn't only apply to RSVP, but also to FGP. The way to check to see if there are sample tools is you go to the Performance Measures homepage on the Knowledge Network. And Patty, can you quickly go there? I know we're out of time, but if you could pull up that page.
The Knowledge Network, yes.
Yes.
Yep. So the Knowledge Network is at nationalserviceresources.org.
And then the Performance Measures homepage will outline the performance measures starting with so if you scroll down on the right, Performance Measures, and then scroll down to Senior Corps. And since this question was specific to RSVP, click on RSVP. And in this case, go to Healthy Futures. Click on Aging in Place. And then you get to, this goes through the performance measures all the way to the outputs and outcomes. So the output is H8 and the outcome in this case is H9. If you click on H9 and then scroll to the bottom, this is where we will be putting the sample instruments. They have not been uploaded yet because we just recently finished them, but this is where you will eventually find them. If you'd like to see sample instruments for those particular measures now, you can look in the e-courses for RSVP. There's one called Measuring Home Meal Delivery Activities, and the instruments should be available in those e-courses. I'll also see if we can get them moved to the library in the virtual conference environment if they're not there already.
That is all of the questions thus far.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.